A very good morning to you. Welcome along to OTBAM this Thursday morning. And well, there's really only one story in town today, and that's the future of the Irish football family, really, when it comes down to it, because obviously the news broke yesterday afternoon. We went live around noon with a programme in response to the news that Martin O'Neill has been stepping down. Since then, things have moved on pretty rapidly, where it now looks pretty much like a shoo-in that it's going to be a Mick McCarthy, Robbie Keane partnership. Certainly the newspapers this morning are moving in that direction. Damien Duff has given them his seal of approval. Kevin Kilbane gave it his seal of approval. There's a growing belief out there that Stephen Kenny won't get the job. What do you think?
Stephen Kenny, I would be surprised, very surprised, if he managed to usurp Mick McCarthy from the front running of this Republic of Ireland job. The thing is, it's disappointing to hear that. I'd be very much of the opinion that Ireland at this point should take this opportunity and see it as an opportunity to go and speak to as many people as possible. What's the hurry here?
The draw, apparently. We're going to have the manager in place in time for the draw.
Let's do a few interviews.
No, I mean...
Why do you need to have the manager for Sunday week?
Well,
go and like we had this conversation on that show yesterday. Go and cast the net as wide as you possibly can. Speak to as many people. If you're not even intent on hiring that person as a potential FAI employee, they might be able to help out in some capacity. Let's remember that there's an under-21s job to fill here. It's almost as if nobody's actually thinking about the importance of an underage role at the moment in relation to the senior team.
Niall Quinn had an really interesting conversation last night on the football show, where he had a range of different proposals, a suggestion that the league should divorce effectively from the FAI and have its own setup and administration, marketing team, that they should be lobbying the government for tax breaks for football clubs. And I mean, I think all of these ideas need to be talked about and teased out and a study done. But he also specifically wanted the possibility of the senior international manager having ultimate responsibility for how the underage teams play, so that instead of it being Rude Doctor, we've got the audio of it? Oh yeah, okay, we'll have a listen to this. So it's Niall Quinn.
I think the one thing I would say is, and I would say this in front of John, there's no FAI great love for the League of Ireland, and that's the problem. I think he called it a problem child.
Yes, he used the word problem. Yeah, the problem child.
Yeah, that has to be your favourite child. That has to be the child you spoil rotten, and that's not happened. And I do think it's difficult for the FAI to do that. You've spoken about the finances, so how can they do it? And I said it recently. I was at the PFAI dinner and I spoke about, we've had tax breaks for investment in failing, I suppose, sports and film industries and hotel industries over the last 10 or 15 years. But, soccer in our country is the most participated sport. We have 470,000 people lining up at weekends. We have referees. It's an incredible amount when you consider the size of the country, but yet our government consistently ignores the challenge that is there for football to have a bigger place and a boost over what's happened to it in the last 20 years since all the players played with the top English clubs. They don't anymore. Our football has fallen down, but we still love the game on the island. Our government should look at bringing tax breaks, because they brought them to the film industry. Okay, I don't see 470,000 people out making films every weekend.
He also went on to talk about the hotel industry, the building of hotels, and the bloodstock industry, and how all of those have been revolutionised by tax breaks. Like, it would be difficult, I would suspect, for a single sport tax break to get through, but if the soccer facilities were to be multi-purpose facilities available to the community, then all of a sudden you can see how this would happen. Or if these soccer facilities also included an element of social housing. There's ways and means to make this happen if somebody is driving it. But his point was that effectively the FA are too busy to do this, because it's not their job to run the clubs. So they're trying to run football. There's no one actually out there trying to make the clubs better, because that's not the FA's job. Getting him involved and getting somebody... The idea of having the international team manager be responsible for the under-21 team and how the under-19 team plays, so that there's a consistency of style, makes a little bit of sense, but it's very difficult for anybody whose responsibility is to get the team to qualify to concentrate on anything except getting the team to qualify, because it's really hard. As we've seen, it's really, really hard. We almost never qualify for tournaments. Like, it's such a big deal when we go, because we almost never qualify. So...
Is it a director of football role, essentially, at international level, somebody who oversees it? does that then undermine the authority of the football manager of the senior team? I would say probably not.
Not
because
anymore.
it's worked so successfully at club level for the biggest businesses and the biggest growing businesses in the world over the last couple of decades.
You would like 20 years ago, you would have said, well, why does it take two managers? But now it's like, well, so that the director of football has picked the head coach, and the head coach picks the team. The director of football is like, picked a coach who is going to influence the style of play, organise them, direct them, do some set pieces, some tactical awareness pieces.
Pick a team 24 hours in advance.
Some coaching, and yeah.
Just on the tax breaks, I wonder, like, forgive me if this has been spoken about before and it's kind of been quashed, but I certainly haven't really heard it touted too often. Like, Niall Quinn is one of the first voices that actually said that it's a good idea, and I agree with him. I wonder if the government just see club football as something that they can't make a few bob off, therefore what's the point in having tax breaks? Whereas with the tourism industry, it's all well and good giving hotels and restaurants tax breaks when you know that it's going to bring, if they're of a top quality, people will keep returning to the country, and our booming industry of tourism will continue to grow and grow. Whereas what is the football equivalent? What is the football payoff?
What's the point?
Yeah.
I think that you'd need to be making a case. Somebody would need to go away and make the financial case and say, this is the possibility, this is the outcome, this is what the economic benefit will be, this is what the social benefit will be. Like, you're trying to build a sport so that it has a social impact, and it goes beyond just bums on seats, right? And it goes beyond improving the quality of football. That has to be part of the argument. But I don't know, my instinct here is that what's going to happen is Big Mick and Robbie Keane come in and they get appointed and this conversation disappears, because that's always what happens. We focus on the immediate short-term future. Like, several people have been calling for a Genesis report Mark II.
But is Mick McCarthy not the very definition of a short-term appointment?
100%, yeah.
So, like, there doesn't seem to be too many dissenting. I know we've just got into this news cycle of Mick McCarthy potentially becoming the next Ireland manager. There doesn't seem to be a whole pile of dissenting voices against Mick McCarthy. Like, Nathan did say at the top of that show yesterday that it's a nostalgia appointment. Part of me would tend to agree with him. And it's weird, we've kind of spoken about Mick McCarthy before, and I think I'm quite often more favourable about Mick McCarthy than a lot of people. But if we really are talking about the long-term gain of Irish football, is Mick McCarthy more of a plaster, or is he more of a long-term fix? I think he's the former.
Absolutely, he's a plaster. It's just that the job has become so unattractive for so many people. Like, there's no prospect of us getting. I saw Brendan Rodgers and Chris Hughton linked with it. Why in God's name would either of those two people take this job?
Especially Hughton. He'd be mad to take the job.
Especially Rodgers. Like,
but at least Rodgers, you couldn't blame him for leaving Celtic.
Well, no, but he's got a shot at a decent Premier League team next,
Probably
right?
Does, yeah.
No?
He probably does. He'll certainly be in the conversation, if not a top half championship club who'll be pushing for promotion with plenty of resources.
Is there a possibility he gets the Spurs job if Mauricio Pochettino goes?
No.
I think if Pochettino leaves...
come on.
Look, I think that there's a chance.
I think that if Rafa Benitez and Newcastle part ways, then I think that's where Brendan Rodgers' level is at. And that's not to say that he's not a good enough manager to manage in the top six. I think where his level is at, you've got to consider the optics of Brendan Rodgers, the view that he has within the Premier League, and he is relatively underrated in the Premier League. I don't think he's a top six manager yet. He'll get back up to that level eventually, you suspect. But
the job he's done at Celtic is pretty amazing.
I don't think Brendan Rodgers managing the Republic of Ireland next is the most outlandish thing that's ever been suggested. I think Chris Hughton is...
No, the most outlandish thing ever suggested was that Roy Keane would be number 2 to Martin O'Neill, and then lo and behold it happened. So you learn the hard way not to make things sound too outlandish. But I just don't think it's absolutely not possible at the moment. And also, are we going to go back to a situation where we're paying $1 million, $1.5 million, or 1.8 million and 800 grand were figures that I'd been hearing about the previous duo? Are we really going to be spending £2.5 million on our managerial team? Or should we be spending an absolute max of 400 grand for 300 grand for Mick McCarthy and 100 grand for Robbie Keane, or 50 grand for Robbie Keane, because he doesn't need the money, frankly? Like, what level do we pitch the job at now, and what's the point of paying the superstar international manager?
I don't know. I do wonder if Robbie Keane isn't going to get that well paid. As you say, he doesn't really need the money. Is this not an incredibly high-risk move from Robbie Keane?
As an assistant manager, no.
Has
Risk
the reputation of Roy Keane, like, so with any assistant manager, you shouldn't be judging what you do as an assistant, but with that sort of profile, it will be referred to in the same way that we refer to Martin O'Neill and Roy Keane, which is Martin O'Neill and Roy Keane. We'll be referring to it as Mick McCarthy and Robbie Keane. And like, he gets tired with whatever happens over the next couple of years. Now the thing is, Mick McCarthy could do a brilliant job. We don't want to say just yet that he's going to be terrible in the short term, but that's what he is. He is a short-term view to what is a long-term problem and has been a long-running problem.
There's a short-term problem. Very quickly on this last point for now, there is a short-term problem in that there are qualifiers for a tournament, one of the games of which is going to be in Dublin imminent, and we will play in that game if we qualify.
You can't blame the FAI for wanting to make sure we're there.
Absolutely not. And so that's why they think it's, and that's why that's their priority right now, is to be ready to go for 2020, to have the match in the stadium with our team in the debt-free stadium, and that's their target. But actually, really, I mean, you know, I can't blame them for wanting to qualify for the tournament, the game. But equally, there needs to be a long-term plan, and there needs to be an assessment of where the hell we are and why we've fallen so precipitously, and why it has been such a crappy league for such a long period of time, and why it hasn't got the investment from anywhere that it needs. Right, well, let's tell you what's coming up on the show. Graham Hunter's going to join us a little bit later on to talk about his new documentary, his new Barcelona documentary. There's a screening in Dublin in Liberty Hall on Sunday evening, and we'll have a promo code for Off The Ball listeners to get a 10% discount for you a little bit later on, and we'll tweet that out as well. So our breakfast menu around about 8:35. We're going to talk rugby with Alan Quinlan. It's a relatively quiet week on the rugby front, considering that everybody who played last week is not going to play again this week against the USA, but it is an opportunity for us to talk about some of the depth that Ireland are creating at the moment, and we'll get through that with Alan Quinlan and maybe look back a little bit more one last time on our historic victory against the All Blacks. Now though, time for the papers.
OTB AM.
Thanks to Screwfix.ie, championing the trade with a dedicated call centre.
Is there a managerial superstar out there who you would like let's pay $1.5 million for?
Good question. Are we in a fallow period of available managers? Well, I think we definitely are.
So, before Tuchel got the job before this one, like, are you looking for a wunderkind German 32-year-old and going, yeah, come on, look, this is going to be mad, right? You're going to have to go and watch loads of football in the League of Ireland and in the Championship in England, but we pay you £1 million. We think you're going to be special. This is your chance to catapult yourself up, so you don't have to manage the second best team in the Bundesliga.
You see, the thing is that person not Stephen Kenny?
Probably, yeah.
He's 47 years old. Okay, you definitely can't describe him as a wunderkind because he's 47 years old. But in terms of his profile being relatively...
47's young. What the...
Well, you just mentioned Thomas Tuchel. He's older than Thomas Tuchel.
Yeah.
Quite substantially. So that is our version of what that is. The only people who take that sort of job in international football now, it seems to be like a patriotic call to arms, like Ryan Giggs.
Yeah.
You wouldn't get somebody from abroad to risk the very important early stages of their managerial career to come and manage us.
For loads of money you would. That's my point. That was the money was the issue there, not the, you know, like you're not appealing to...
I'm still not sure we would. Like what is the point? Like, it is a huge dollop of short-termism to take the Ireland job.
Roberto Martinez, for example, somebody at that level. How much is Roberto Martinez getting? I don't know. But
well, I'd say he would get less paid with Belgium than he would get with Ireland. But that's not the point here. There is a certain trade-off in terms of your own reputation. Let's
go through the papers. A frosty public face, but O'Neill did have another side. That's Emmett Malone's story there. And who next? McCarthy, the early favourite. Finance is not football prompted the FAI to act is Emmett's second piece there. Delaney concerned about the possibility of missing out on co-hosted Euro 2020. And look, it's hard to have too many issues with their immediate short-termism because, well, you kind of need it. We need to qualify. We've got to be playing in that game. Monet's Garden, farewell to a legend, tributes flow after brilliant chaser dies aged 20. And then betting La Liga Loca.
Have a morning to you.
It used to be argued that La Liga was boring, not because it lacked star talent, but rather because too much of the talent resided at Barcelona and Real Madrid to make Real Spain uncompetitive. But now, apparently, there's a little bit of competition, and anyway, moving swiftly on. Robbie Keane in the frame is the headline on John Fallon's piece in the Times Ireland edition. McCarthy is keen on a return to Ireland job. So George Calkin has the story that Mick McCarthy is keen. I mean, I think we all knew he was keen, right? Because he's on Virgin Media, he's doing games, he's around a good bit.
Also said, literally on the record, that he would be very interested in a return to the Ireland job at some point.
This is the Irish Independent back page. Duff insists McCarthy and Robbie could spark Ireland. And the GPA boost for second tier football championship plans. So 60% of GPA members now are in favour of a tiered championship. I wonder, is the 40% against it the 40% of players who are going to be in that second tier, or how that worked? I'd like to see the breakdown county by county. And then on the front page, it's a picture of happy times, the nostalgia when Aircon was a company and existed in the build-up to 2002, looks like. Is that our 2002 jersey? Is it?
Yeah.
Training kit?
Yeah.
It looks like 2002. So there you go. I don't know. Did they pay him off? Did they have to pay him? Do you have to pay Martin O'Neill off?
Well, because it's mutual agreement, isn't there some sort of middle ground you have to reach?
Probably, yeah. So the Examiner front page, Back to the Future. That's Big Mick. McCarthy lined up for Irish return following O'Neill departure.
He does kind of. What's the name of the actor that played Doc in Back to the Future? He could play Mick McCarthy in his biopic. Christopher
Lloyd.
Christopher Lloyd. Let's go with that, because I haven't a notion. But now that I see it there, I'm like, yeah, kind of look alike.
Yeah.
And is Robbie Keane's going to be his Marty McFly?
Yeah, Christopher Lloyd. There you go. I was right. Yeah. I mean, it does have a 80s blockbuster feel to it.
Yeah, it does.
Ultimately, those blockbusters, short term, feel good, instantly forgettable.
Yeah, and their view of the future was completely off. Again, this all comes back to short-termism. This is just a move for the here and the now, not for the future. You done?
Done.
Herald's back and front. Get Mac back, says the front. At the back it says Mac to the future. McCarthy tipped for return as Irish boss with Robbie Keane in as number 2. The Mirror then goes, there's a lot of people, is anybody not going with Mac to the future this morning? The Mirror goes with Mac to the future. FAI hunt new boss after O'Neill goes. They're on the front as well. Make your mind up time. The back of the Irish Daily Mail then this morning is The Last Dance. McCarthy in frame as FAI call time on O'Neill, Keane access, while Ireland's best is yet to come. Warren Sexton, he is the Rugby Writers' Player of the Year for 2018. Front page of the Irish Sun is Give Me the Job, while the back of the Sun is Return of the Mick, and he'll bring Robbie with him, says Owen Cowser. The Star then, the front goes with Return of the Mac. Mick tipped to be manager again as FAI pay €1.5 million to ditch O'Neill and Keane. While also on the front page, Conor misses court over a speed charge. Conor McGregor failed to turn up in court yesterday as he faced prosecution on a new driving rap. Back of the Irish Daily Star is Help. We need somebody. Lennon and McCarthy top FAI list, and benefactor may have been found to fund it. And you've also got Matt Doherty's quotes there saying that he was baffled by O'Neill's methods. Then a couple of the UK back pages who don't lead with Ireland, naturally. Back of The Guardian is Football Makes Miracles. Infantino says shared World Cup could help Middle East peace. So that's exactly what the World Cup brings, is peace and good times and good memories for those struggling. The Daily Telegraph then is Rugby Chief seeks tougher line on tackles. Referees must show more red and yellow cards, says Gosper.
What do you think? What do you want?
Stephen Kenny.
Now, isn't
Yes.
it like, part of me does feel like the playing staff isn't great at the moment, and Stephen Kenny has just finally got some backing with the Yanks in Dundalk. He's going to go into a European campaign, might be able to keep most of his best players, could have 2 more years, and then for the qualifying campaign for 2022, that might be the right time for him to step up.
Well, that's the thing. The problem with Stephen Kenny is that he's so scapegoatable that it's very, I could imagine the public perception of him turning very quickly if things don't immediately turn around. So if it comes down to a question of who has the better chance of qualifying for us for Euro 2020, but I think the gap between Mick McCarthy and Stephen Kenny is much smaller. I don't think there's much between them there. I think you can make an argument for either or both. But then you look into 4, 6, 8 years down the line, who would be the better manager for that sort of time frame? And for me, it's Stephen Kenny every day of the week. So I think there's a short-term gain and a long-term gain. The only thing is that people might come down on him a little bit more harshly than they would to Mick McCarthy.
Cian Ryan says the FAI just need to look at Dublin GAA and more appropriately the IRFU and how to turn an organisation into a well-run machine, expertise which they lack and money which they don't lack. Hashtag OTBAM. The Ido founder says people forget much of McCarthy's tenure. It wasn't all great. Football was often long ball stuff. He's another old school manager.
And think of the players he had.
Everything Quinn said last night was great. Get him in somewhere. England have a technical director, Dan Ashworth. Is that some? On YouTube says England do have a technical director. Yeah, well, we've got a technical director too. And it's just that there seems not to be a connection between his job and the senior international team, which I think is the point that Niall Quinn was making. Worth listening back to that. But anyway, here is some of Kevin Kilbane against Nathan Murphy from last night's show. Have a look.
I said, if you're looking for an immediate response for a manager when he walks in the dressing room or walks into the building, Mick McCarthy would immediately grab you more than Stephen Kenny. I am telling you right now that would be the case.
Did Brian Kerr suffer a little bit with that?
Yes, he did. Yes, he did. And it kills me to say, because I've got so much respect for him. What he brought to me with I think he took my performances to another level. But there was an element of that around the dressing room. Yes, there was.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to hear that. I would think any Premier League or Championship player, even if they've come through the League of Ireland, but particularly those who hadn't, would be
Callum O'Dowda,
iffy about a League of
Callum
Ireland.
O'Dowda and Harry Arter and lads that have grown up in England will not know who Stephen Kenny is. I'm telling you that right now. I'm telling you now, they will not know who he is. They would have heard his name mentioned. They were always manager of Dundalk. Won't know a thing about him. They will not know a thing about him. Or English-born lads will not know a thing about him.
And what do they know about Mick McCarthy?
Well, they know that Mick...
What? That he was sacked by Ipswich?
What? But that's... Well, you can throw that out. You can throw that out. You can say, well, Stephen Kenny's been sacked by Dunfermline.
But
that's
Mick McCarthy's... I wouldn't have a problem with Mick McCarthy getting the job. I'm just saying suddenly we're judging it on what Harry Arter and Callum O'Dowda think.
But this is what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying to you. I think Robbie Brady be in the same boat. I think Jeff Hendrick be in the same boat. They'll be getting word filtered through them, but they won't know a thing about him. It's not being disrespectful to him in any way, but that's a fact. It's a fact. They will.
Okay, I mean, it's interesting, right? But so what? So what? So they don't know anything about him. They're going to learn from the first training session, and they're going to learn from the shape and the work that he does in the training ground. And if they don't have the wherewithal and balls to understand that their job is to play football for Ireland for this manager, if they don't treat him with the respect that he deserves, then we don't really want those players in our team. It would be good to know a bit more about who in the setup didn't respect Brian Kerr, because he got Chris Hughton with him as a coach. And what impact that has. And look, we can't deny that Kevin knows exactly what he's talking about because he was there and he's seen it. And this is an issue, right? This is an issue that is going to be constantly thrown at Stephen Kenny. But tough shit, lads. He's the manager, and if you don't like it, and if you're not respecting him, then sling your hook. We don't want you playing for Ireland. If you're going to be such a prissy clown that the fact that you don't know this person, but you've seen Mick on telly and on the Sky Sports Gold on Sunday couch, that he's therefore a better manager, we don't want you. You're not committed to the team, you're committed to yourself. That's what I think.
To be fair, just on that, I do think the Mick McCarthy respect would come from seeing him lead a team to the last 16 in a World Cup rather than seeing him on the couch of
when
television.
They were 2.
But
they were 3. And it's a long time ago. And he had Robbie Keane and
vast
Damien
majority of
Duff.
that squad remember Robbie Keane's goal against Germany, without question. They remember the happiness. They know what Mick McCarthy did with Irish football. And to be honest with you, they're actually of such an age.
Michael Obafemi was 2.
They actually have... Michael Obafemi is literally the youngest player in the squad. They're actually of such an age where they remember it as a child. So all they remember are the high moments. They actually don't remember the lows of the Mick McCarthy era. They're of the exact age profile that remember the glorification of Mick McCarthy. They don't remember what you mentioned there, like the hoofing the long balls at times, the poor football. The argument that sometimes Mick McCarthy actually underachieved with this
chronically
Irish team because of the quality of player he had.
He chronically underachieved.
And the thing is, I agree with you, but I just wanted to make that argument. What I think about this is that I think we're undervaluing the football intelligence of the Irish team to say that they would actually judge a manager based on their profile or based on what they deemed to be international success before and a long time ago. that they actually can see what Stephen Kenny has done with Dundalk, do you really think that any Ireland player will go into that dressing room and be like, who the hell is that guy? Maybe they will, and maybe I'm giving them too much credit.
And get them out. Get them out. Straight away, go, this guy doesn't have any respect for the team and for his country, so off you go.
Or, like, if they don't know who the manager is, I think that's a little bit unfair to get rid of them. I would say that they will all be familiar with who Stephen Kenny is, what he's done with Dundalk, and that he's overachieved. Let's not forget that we've got a very recent strong track record of appointing very high-profile managers with very high-profile assistant managers. And what has that got for us?
Qualification for the Euros twice.
What has it got for us in the last 12 months?
I know, but that's there's mad revisionism about the tenure under Mick McCarthy, and there's mad revisionism about how bad things were under O'Neill, because the last year was not really great, and we did qualify for the Euros, and we did have great nights.
Well, that's the thing. We did sit here yesterday and we were like, if Martin O'Neill was making his case to John Delaney yesterday morning, then the thing is, he would be saying, when did I actually underachieve that wildly? Of course, there were 2 drubbings in the last year, which weren't great, but particularly if you go back before that, I would say that I overachieved with the Ireland team. And I think there was an argument to be made there. But I really don't think that the reason why they overachieved at times was because Roy Keane and Martin O'Neill are famous.
No, we didn't. I mean, okay, we'll come back to this and the debates about it, and we'll get to your comments. Here's what Brian Kerr had to say on last night's show about who he thinks should be the next Irish manager. Have a look.
I'd love to see Stephen Kenny getting a job, getting a go at it. I think he's earned a chance, given his work, his brilliant work with Dundalk, great work he did at Derry City in the past, and Bohemians in the past. His experience, I think he's had a lot of experience, even the fact that he had his time in Scotland that didn't go amazingly well for him. I think it was the wrong job at the wrong time for him. But I think he's the better of that experience, and with the European experience he's had under his belt with Dundalk, I think, and the fact he knows a lot of the players have emerged from the League of Ireland, and some of them have gone on from their days with him at Dundalk and after your Bohemians to the international stage himself. I think he would be a good fit for the job. I think I wouldn't have any problem with Mick McCarthy getting the job. Mick is available. I think he would be interested. I've been working with him up in Virgin Media a good bit recently on the coverage in Champions League and international football. He still has a fire in his belly and the enthusiasm and the knowledge of the game. He's probably a better manager now than he was when he finished up in 2002 in the international job. But I'm sure there'll be other candidates will emerge over the next few days, unless the FAI make a very quick appointment. There'll be candidates, non-Irish candidates will emerge. There'll be talk. Will we get Chris Hughton out of Brighton? Maybe there'll be talk about Sam Allardyce, about Arsene Wenger, 2 fellas who are out of work, very experienced managers, and other candidates like that will emerge.
Do we take Arsene Wenger? Yeah, I think we probably take Arsene Wenger. Do we?
Just about, yeah. I would probably settle for a man who helped revolutionise English football.
Yeah. All right.
But we were just saying there, if, for example, the FAI don't manage to strike a deal with Mick McCarthy, Robbie Keane, and they're not interested in Stephen Kenny, who do they then go for? Is it a toss-up between Sam Allardyce and Carlos Queiroz?
Who do you want?
Probably Queiroz, to be honest, which is kind of indicative of my opinion of Sam Allardyce.
It's great, isn't it? Here you go. All right, let's talk about the brilliant new documentary on Barcelona's Guardiola years. Take the ball, pass the ball. There's a screening this Sunday in the Liberty Hall in Dublin at 6 o'clock. We'll tweet the link to get tickets. And the man behind it is Graham Hunter, and he joins us on the line to talk to us this morning. Graham, what are you hearing about the Republic of Ireland job?
Do you mean how they offered it to me?
Yeah. Do you want it?
Yeah, listen, I take it. We'd have fun. Believe me, we'd have fun. You'd have to change the lyrics of You'll Never Beat the Irish, because I think every now and again we might get beaten. But hey, look, I'm up for it. I know it's in your power, lads. I think you were just hinting about Sam Allardyce a minute ago. Don't give it to him. Please don't give it to him. There's a real beaut. Archie Gemmell's boy, Scott Gemmell, would be a really left field appointment, but he'd be a brilliant appointment. Obviously, I say us. From here in Spain, we exiled Scots are kind of happy, not just to have got that 2020 playoff spot guaranteed, but the manner of, I mean, one of the things I've been listening to, apart from last night, excellent about the way in which the Irish FA needs to rethink, rejig. Delaney's under the spotlight. Fantastic programming last night. And I know about you that man is listened to, probably even appointed, I don't know. But like the manner of Ireland's displays recently, I guess it isn't simply the results. And suddenly the disconnect that I've been hearing you talk about between Ireland, the setup, the management team, the players and the fans. Whereas if there was a nation around the world that above and beyond punching sort of over your weight, the recent win against Germany with a management team that have just departed, and a big performance at the Euros. If there was a team around the world that had a 13th man, it was Ireland, obviously. Aside from all the other things that over the last decade, 2 decades that you've achieved. And therefore, one of the things I'd like to see whoever gets that job is that the connect comes back between the type of coach, the man, the squad and the fans.
Yeah.
Because watching from a distance, that's been part of the value for anybody who's not Irish who's been watching your team.
100%, and that's one of the points that Damien Duff made as well, that the team has become background noise as opposed to something that's absolutely centred in Irish football fans' lives. We're just having a bit of an issue with your screen, so what we'll do is we'll fix that while we play everybody here the trailer for Take the Ball, Pass the Ball. This will whet your appetite and we'll talk about it right after this.
If you tell me that you love football and you don't love Barcelona, you have a problem.
2011 was the best round of football I've seen.
Yo entiendo el fútbol así. Once we got that first victory, there was no stopping us.
Que fue un poco el comienzo de todo.
Everyone knew that this guy is going to be the best in the world. And there was no doubt about it.
Solo con la noticia de que Guardiola va a entrenar al primer equipo, yo ya estoy sintiendo algo de que vamos a ir bien. Él fue innovador en una forma de jugar.
Take the ball, pass the ball, take the ball, pass the ball.
Pep says, I will bring you to the final of the Champions League, and it was like this.
I'm not sure, Eoin, that we appreciated them while we had them.
That's the same with everything, really. Is it a lesson that we should be kind of taking a deeper appreciation of what we're looking at now? Is there a lesson in that with how we view the Irish team over the last couple of years?
The football team.
That when you're sitting in Lille enjoying the afterglow of Robbie Brady's goal, that you're like, this is joy. Appreciated as it is right now.
Yeah, that's
on every level. Doesn't necessarily need to look like that, because I don't think we'll ever look like that.
Maybe that should be the thing that we aspire to. Graham, first off, congratulations on the documentary. Irish fans are going to get an opportunity to see it this Sunday in Liberty Hall. What's the response been like? Because I haven't talked to you really since the first trailer went live that day.
Yeah, you've been kind of at the whole project. Look, it's usual that I'm on here talking my nonsense about things that I'm observing. So to be a participant and talking to you feels a little bit embarrassing. I'm not a great one for bigging myself up unless I'm joking. But what I will honestly tell you is that it's been overwhelming what people have said about the movie. It's done well in cinemas in the UK and Spain. I was determined, the director Duncan McMath was also determined that Ireland should have a premiere. It's only in Dublin, I'm sorry, to the rest of the country. The feedback's been marvellous. People have talked about lots of different things. And I'll give you maybe 3 areas that I really enjoy. One, nostalgia is beautiful. Normally it takes a long time for people to be nostalgic, and to feel the level of nostalgia from neutral fans, because this is, I would argue at its core, a Barca film. If people are affectionate towards that Barca era or Xavi or Iniesta, there's liberal doses of what they'll want. To me, this is an homage to the way that football can be played, the way in which football can lift you out of your seat, surprise you, make you laugh, make you have the experience of your lifetime if you're a neutral. That's genuinely what we wanted to achieve for this film. And the feedback from people saying, I remember once during the Pep era, I saved up my money, took a Ryanair flight, went to the Camp Nou, and it was the best football night of my life. Or even United fans saying to us, having watched this, yeah, I'll watch that again, despite the pain of Rome and Wembley, particularly pain Rome, but Wembley, people find a value in watching it. And the second thing that I've really liked is that over and over again in feedback from around the world now, because people around the world have been watching this, is they appreciate that we've asked questions that we know will get an honest, critical answer. So, for example, in the film, Abidal is very critical of Pep Guardiola in their first meetings and admits that he was ready to walk out on the club. Dani Alves goes in a trajectory during the film from saying, well, when I first met Pep and was coached by him, if he told me to jump off the roof of the Camp Nou, I'd have done it because I believed there was a purpose, a reason. And by season 4, he admits that if Pep told me to jump off the roof of the Camp Nou, I'd have taken the stairs and run down as quickly as possible. Eto'o criticises him, not in a brutal way, but in a way in which I think tries hard, and people tell me we've succeeded in not making this a hagiography. It's not sweetness and light everywhere. It's not everything's beautiful. We have Victor Valdez saying the first time Pep briefed me on how he wanted to play, I thought he was mad. So I asked him to repeat it, and even listening to it again, I thought he was talking Chinese. So there are phases in there that celebrate the beauty. There are phases that try to explain how it happened. We let the personalities talk as honestly as we could push them to. I think you see it in their facial expressions and their laughter, how they relax, how they tell their own stories. Everybody's in there, Messi, Pep, Xavi, Iniesta, Piqué. We enjoyed making it. It was hard. We went into debt to make it. It's a typical story of having to fight hard to make our project. We enjoyed it overall. I think it's been worth it. And in Liberty Hall, Sunday night from 6, Duncan and I and you will be talking about the show beforehand. The film on... it's the first time, maybe, I don't know, the only time it'll be on in cinemas in Ireland. And I'm really proud. It's the most educated sporting audience I've ever come across. And I'd say you're up there with Australia as being the most adept, most wide-ranging, most challenging sports audience I've ever encountered in my travels around the world. So Take the Ball should be shown in Ireland.
I don't want to waste all my good questions, but having done all this work and revisited the book for the film afterwards, do you have a better idea now why Pep walked away when he did?
I have a clearer idea that he should have walked away earlier. Part of how we define greatness, I listen to all of you on Off the Ball so often. I think I'm preaching to the converted, Chair. Part of how we define true greatness is a judgment about when to walk away, temporarily for refreshing your mental and physical capacities, or finally greatness can be defined when somebody says, that's it for me, I'm ready to stop now. And Pep missed that beat by a year. Who can criticise him? Not me. But in the film and in the book, we talk about the fact that Johan Cruyff, in the lead up to the Wembley final against Manchester United, says, it wouldn't surprise me, and I think it's time for Pep to walk away, to leave Barcelona, to stop and just to hit the restart button. Pep didn't do that. The 4th year was tough. It's interesting, only last night Pep was saying, all right, maybe with his tongue in his cheek a little bit, about how much he's enjoying the English media right now. And I tweeted a couple of weeks ago that during the year and a half or a couple of years that he's been in Manchester, I've seen him talk about football in press conferences more often than I ever did at Barcelona. And therefore, Chair, what I'm building to say is that by that 4th year, and the players tell this tale, he was burned out, he was angry, he'd lost his feeling with the president of the club, he felt he didn't have allies. The Chelsea defeat was one of those spectacular nights where strange things happen, particularly if you look back at the first leg at Stamford Bridge, where Barcelona played genuinely brilliantly and should have won about 5-1 and didn't. And by the time he walked away, it was done in a bad manner. It was replaced in a bad manner. The players felt upset about how he'd been treated, but some of them also felt upset with him. Dani Alves talks about rowing with them all the time in year 4. Ger, he just mistimed it, and that idea came through into his decision about when to leave Bayern Munich. And eventually, certainly not now, eventually it will guide him about when to leave Manchester City, because I don't think he's not a man to make that same mistake twice, Ger.
No, I was just about to ask. It seems like he's very conscious of that idea of how to cement his own legacy as a complete great of the game. And you do wonder if that'll be the same when it comes to his overall value of his career, that not only will he know when to leave Manchester City when that right time comes, but also when the right time is to leave management entirely. And he's approaching the level of greatness pretty soon. So I'm not sure is that idea of him calling it quits as a manager going to arrive pretty soon as well.
Energy would be one of the big answers to your question, because he takes positive energy from pupils who listen and respond. So you both will know now that City will play a great game, and that we'll all appreciate, that will win them a big victory. They might score 3 or 4, and it's quite feasible that Pep comes away from that experience furious with himself, remonstrating with himself, disappointed about his level of preparation, albeit that it's fanatically meticulous by everybody else's standards. So when he's getting the positive energy of noticing that he's on his game and that the players are responding and applying, and that you pick a youth team player or a senior player, whichever brand of City footballer you want, if those players are improving and telling him that everything is still vital, those elements will be far more important to him than whether he did or didn't win the Champions League that season, in terms of staying, going, stopping. And then you're right, in due course, again at Liverpool University last night, he charted out that one day he does want to be a national team coach. And in normal circumstances, that might be what Brazil is something that he would actively rush to try and get that job. Spain, possibly so. England, don't rule it out with the way in which the kids that came through and won the 2 World Cups and the European Championships over the last 18 months. Don't rule that out either. In due course, he'll be a national team coach. You know the difference in energy outlay when you're a national team coach, particularly if it's going well. You've got greater time to think and to plan. That will sustain him for a long time. And in due course, again, I'm absolutely certain he'll head the Barcelona Academy in terms of reinstalling what is now lost, corroded and very nearly gone, the Cruyff ideals around the Camp Nou, in terms of how they pick up kids from 10, 11, 12 and how they train them and what type of footballers that academy will turn out in due course. And that's a long, long way now for the time release of those who want to see more Xavis and Iniestas and Messis coming through Barca's ranks. But one day he'll do that, and that will be one of his greatest passions. He has never lost that joy of seeing younger kids being taught the values that made him a great footballer and now a great coach. And he will want to be that type of professor in due course.
Graham, great stuff. We'll see you on Sunday. Thanks a million.
Looking forward.
It's Graham Hunter there talking about his new documentary, which is screening in Liberty Hall in Dublin on Sunday evening at 6 o'clock. There's a promo code. The code is off the ball. There you go. See what we did there? We used the name of the show as the promo code. It's really easy.
Right, okay, that makes sense now. It took me a while to come to the understanding.
Yeah, so the promo code is off the ball. Get you 10% discount, and it is on Eventbrite. Is it Eventbrite? It is Eventbrite.ie. Yeah. So here's our breakfast menu this morning. Patrice Evra. What a creep. We've got a chess update. Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury, the worst trash talking since the Tiger Phil stuff. GA shootouts, obviously somebody somewhere is watching OTBAM because, Irish is coming true, it seems. And the Ireland team. Are we going to talk more about the Ireland team? Have we done enough about the Ireland team? Is everybody...
Rugby team.
The Ireland rugby team. Okay, go for it.
We've definitely done enough on the Ireland football team at this point. So as you can expect, plenty of changes for Joe Schmidt's side this weekend. Jerry Thornley with the team that he expects to play this weekend. If this team ends up being the actual team, well, what a coincidence. Tons of changes, an entirely new 15. So the big talking point here is it'll be a first start for both the half-back pairing of Ross Byrne and John Cooney. And you start to think to yourself, is there a possible route into a 23-man squad for either of these guys? I would say the answer is very much no, but you just don't know. Even if we leave fitness aside, there's obviously a route for them if injuries arise.
Yeah, I think that Cooney has a chance, right? Because just let's take the fitness point. Marmion's going to be out between now and February because of his ankle injury. So Cooney will have tape coming into the Six Nations. If there's an injury, if Murray's not fit and Marmion's not back, then Cooney's on the bench for those Six Nations games and he gets a chance. And who knows at that point what happens. So I definitely wouldn't be losing faith or being hopeless at this point if I'm either of those two. Because
he also provides the other string to the bow that Conor Murray provides, which is off the tee, he's not bad. And that's another string to the bow. I think Ross Byrne has got to hope for a sensational run of injury luck. I'd be very, very surprised. Like to usurp the starting 10 for Leinster and Munster at this point is going to be extremely
hugely
tough.
difficult. However, he will get plenty of game time too, because they are going to manage Johnny Sexton's minutes like even more than they normally do.
Yeah, and he's obviously going to be on the plane to the World Cup. It's strange that we actually have a very definite thing. Just in terms of the rest of the team, the rest of the backs, Will Addison at full back, the wings are Andrew Conway and Darren Sweetenham. Got a midfield pairing of Sam Arnold and Stuart McCluskey. And then up front, the front row is Dave Kilcoyne, Al Scannell, Finlay Beelum, Tyke Byrne and Ian Henderson. Pretty good second row for your second choice 23. Well, not 23, Ian Henderson was in the squad last week. Rhys Ruddock, Jordy Murphy and Jack Conan at the back line. Like, this is the thing about these November tests. Even when we're not playing our first team, you want to see these combinations play together. You want to see Sammy Arnold and Stuart McCluskey go out there together.
Yeah.
It draws viewers in, and that's why, it comes back to this idea that rugby is a good thing to watch at the moment in terms of an entertaining calendar year, and every game kind of matters.
GA Shootouts is next on our breakfast menu this morning. So we were talking about the free taking competitions that have actually been used quite a bit in the club championships, and making the point that really free taking competitions, not that cool.
Yeah, you've got it there in the Star.
Why don't we just have penalties instead?
Yeah, and I think it seems that the GAA want to put this to Central Council. So this weekend is the big date for all these new rules and potential shake-ups.
This is a Carl O'Kane exclusive, and it says turn to page 51, and I'm on page 51. It's a Johnny Sexton story. GAA chiefs are exploring penalty shootouts to replace free taking competitions, which potentially decide a raft of major championship knockout games. A document seen by Star Sport states that this will be based around penalty pucks and kicks going to the CCCC to fix the winner on the day proposals, because there's too many replays, too many games being not decided on the day. I mean, replays for All-Ireland finals, and that's it.
The thing about replays is that it gives us more games between teams of a similar opposition. But if you get rid of replays, then suddenly you're like, oh God, we've lost another 4 games from the football calendar that were actually good.
Yeah. Except that it clogs up the schedule.
Clogs up the schedule completely. The negatives of it completely outweigh the positives. Penalties would be great.
Yeah.
Who would be your 5 penalty takers if you were Jim Gavin?
Well, obviously Dean Rock. Obviously Paul Mannion.
Missed a penalty this summer.
After that, who are you going for? Cluxton.
Con O'Callaghan.
Yeah, I said Mannion, yeah.
And
does Cluxton, or does Con O'Callaghan get taken off in games? Does he finish every game?
It doesn't finish every game. He often gets taken off, yeah.
Remember, this is after extra time, so you can stick people back on. There's you basically get 12 subs in extra time.
Like if Brogan's on the pitch, he takes a penalty.
You stick him on to take a penalty.
Well, that is a new kind of way you look at things. You can't really put on subs for taking penalties though in GAA, because there could be 4 scores between the sub and
well,
the actual.
I mean, it's okay if Brogan's fit, you're sticking him on for those last 5 minutes.
Of course
anyway,
you are.
And you're happy about the fact that
if Jimmy Connolly's back, he makes your first 5 definitely.
Yeah.
So basically, this is just favouring the Dubs, is what I'm trying to say. Okay. What an embarrassment of riches they have in the penalty shootout department.
Wilder and Fury, Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury are fighting in 9 days' time. Relatively low-key build-up to this fight, which actually is 2 interesting fighters. I mean, whatever you think about Tyson Fury as a human being and the stuff that he said. Fury was training at altitude, and Deontay Wilder was like, that guy too fat. He can't even maintain the training camp.
Basically said, yeah, he quit his altitude training camp because he couldn't handle it. To be fair, Deontay Wilder did say, it's tough up there. Like, I've trained in Colorado, high in the Rockies, with a pint of Coors Light in my hand, and it has been extremely tough. So he's not exactly kind of baiting him too much. If anybody's in LA next week, you can still get tickets. 70 quid.
70 quid?
70 quid for a ticket. Now, to be fair, if you go on Viagogo now and look for ringside tickets, you're paying something like 130 grand. So at the top end, they're absolutely outrageous. But at the lower rungs of things, tickets are still on sale. So it hasn't exactly captured the imagination too much. It's in the Staples Centre, and as you say, whatever you think about Tyson Fury as a man, you can park that for a second. You've got to appreciate what he's done with his body over the last 12 to 18 months, the way he's come back from and battled his personal demons, and obviously that manifested itself. Drinking 100 pints a week, he was saying at one stage, to battle his physical demons and get back into pretty good shape. Like, he looked physically pretty good against Pianetta in his last fight, although that was a bit of a farce of a fight. And like, there is every chance that he comes back and wins this. The question for Tyson Fury, though, is what happens after he wins this fight, if he wins a fight, because like, I'm not sure. Like, he was speaking to Joe Rogan recently, and the demons that might arise after he reaches this next summit, because it seems that he's only really interested in beating Deontay Wilder. Does he have much interest in fighting Anthony Joshua? I would say, personally, from the outside looking in, he should, but you can't inform somebody what they should be interested in. And it seems that Tyson Fury's heart isn't exactly in that Joshua fight. I don't know. I don't know. Like, is it a lack of trash talk between the two? Does he not respect Anthony Joshua as much as he might respect Deontay Wilder? Like, I think that opinion may change pretty quickly if he beats Deontay Wilder, because that Wilder-Joshua fight is surely coming our way in the next 12 months. But Saturday week, tickets still on sale.
A chess update, because we're all about the chess here. What's this one about, Eoin?
It's the longest running draw in the history of the World Chess Championships. 9 draws in a row. 132 years we've been talking about the World Chess Championships. And for the first time ever, I'm proud to report that it's 4.5 apiece after 9 games. Now, Magnus Carlsen had a huge opportunity yesterday and he bottled it. He could have taken the sword to the neck of Caruana, his Italian-American counterpart, and he failed miserably. Now, Magnus Carlsen was sporting a black eye while playing chess yesterday. He was playing football and a Norwegian journalist collided with him.
Oh, right.
And he's sporting a big shiner in his eye. And there was questions yesterday as to whether Magnus Carlsen was concussed as a result of said tackle with the Norwegian journalist. And that may have been a jibe at his poor performance in actually putting Caruana to the sword yesterday, that he may have been concussed.
Chess, trash talk. Even worse than Deontay Wilder.
He's basically the Loris Karius of chess, is Magnus Carlsen.
Okay, so the next thing is Patrice Evra. What a creep. Have a look at this. If you're eating your breakfast, you might want to look away for the next 45 seconds. He's kissing a chicken. Kiss. That's him. Like, he's rubbing the chicken like it was, a lover. And then, I mean, chickens are grotesque. Raw chickens are, like...
He goes full Salt Bay there, by the way. I like that bit.
And then he licks the salt. He's kissed the chicken. This makes no sense. And then he smacks the chicken like it's an arse. Like... It's mad. He's making porn with a chicken.
Well, yeah, exactly. Well, he's certainly making the first 5 minutes of a classic porno with the chicken.
And then oh my God. He bit a bit of it. Jesus Christ. What?
I love this game. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Happy Thanksgiving indeed.
Yeah, that's not a happy Thanksgiving. That's the fastest way to hospital.
It is. He put up an Instagram story afterwards. I'm not sure can we bring that Instagram story to you, but he was saying that.
He took his Instagram and said this. Have a look.
Let's have a look at this.
Here's our second video. What a kiss. Apparently Salmonella will sleep with me tonight. Yeah. I can't actually hear what he's saying there, but that's what he's saying. He's like telling everybody to calm down. Calm down, everybody.
I see Lewis Hamilton was commenting on the original post saying, I'm not going to lie, this is weird, man. He's kind of getting shamed online.
Well,
which is one of the more acceptable times for that to occur. Although, each to their own.
No, because like somebody else is going to start doing that. This will become one of those stupid internet crazes where people will genuinely die. Like, raw chicken is poison.
It's not as bad as the Tide Pod craze, but it's right up there for sure. Like, making love to a chicken. Don't do this, kids. Imagine the talk when, a teacher in the classroom was like, so we've got Mr. whatever his name coming in to give you a talk on the latest internet craze. It's like, yeah, kids, you see that chicken there? Don't do what Patrice Evra does.
No.
That would be sort of a disgusting route for us to go down as a human nation.
Alan Quinlan's going to be in the studio with us next to talk Irish rugby. Here is Keith Wood from last night's show with his take on Ireland's win over the All Blacks.
I think we're entitled to go mad and lose the run of ourselves entirely. I don't think the team are.
Sure.
And I also think we have to celebrate the fact that we did what we've never done before. And I don't think there's anything wrong in a few days afterwards still feeling a bit of a warm glow for the fact that Ireland have fully delivered and beaten the All Blacks twice in a few years is pretty impressive, having never done it in our history. So one of the elements of the journey, and every part of sport is a journey, life too, mind you, but is you have to enjoy and celebrate the successes along the way. If you just say, yeah, that's it, let's push it aside, let's not enjoy that, I think you're missing out on some of it. And I do feel for us, you're dead right, we should lose the run of ourselves. Saturday was a reason to lose the run of yourself. But there was another comment, I think it came out from Joe Schmidt, was that this is just a day, a moment in time, when these things have aligned and Ireland have been able to go and do it. So it doesn't lead on to say that, like, if at some stage in the Six Nations we may become the top team in the world, which could happen because New Zealand aren't playing and we are playing, and if we play away from home, this could happen. We're then guaranteed to go and win the World Cup. Well, obviously, that's rubbish. So the point is that, yes, we can. We've set a standard that is pretty damn impressive. And the onus on us is to try and make certain that we set that standard and improve it every time we go out and play. And it won't happen all the time. So this is a one-off game. And for that one-off game, it's phenomenal. And just a joy to be an Irish rugby fan.
Keith Wood giving us his take on Ireland against the All Blacks. We have a pair of tickets to give away for Leinster against the Ospreys. I'll tell you how to do that in just a minute. Alan Quinlan is here. How are you?
Very good now, and yourself?
Have you come down after the weekend? Yeah?
No, I didn't get too carried away, to be honest. 2 bottles of beer after the match and a bag of chips and away home with me. I was Roger's going back to Paris Sunday morning early, and so was Paul, and I was going to have a few drinks with them. But I think it was very enjoyable, satisfying, and I don't think they're going to get carried away. It's a great place to be at the moment in this current situation.
The point you made about Cian Healy on Monday, if anybody didn't see it, was that they expected to win, and so therefore they're not going completely crazy.
I don't think they will. I think there's obviously, it was all over the papers Sunday, Monday. There's a lot of attention around the second time we've beaten them in 113 years, so rightly so. But I think, they won't get carried away. I think Joe Schmidt will have a massive focus on this week. It sounds kind of like, come on, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's only USA. It's not. Their results have been good this year. And the challenge is for the rest of the squad now to the strength and depth that he's been building for the last number of years. Can a few guys stick their hands up and say, well, I'm good enough to be part of that top 23?
Well, Jacob Stockdale was only coming into people's thinking around this time last year. Like, he hadn't been a nailed-on starter at any point up to this, and then all of a sudden, a reasonable November, and he's into the Six Nations team, and he's never getting out of that team again. Like, there is room for bolters.
Go back to two years ago, or a year and a half ago, when they were in nearly 2 years, really, in USA and Japan, year and a half.
Yeah.
Stockdale came on the scene there and played, and I was looking at names who will play on Saturday, like your potential team on Saturday, who will step up from that and possibly challenge for obviously World Cup squad first, and then can they get on the team? There's so many guys, and you try and, this term friendly was bandied around a good bit after the weekend. And if you say that to even the players, this is the massive game for the guys who are trying to get into that group and who have ambitions to get into that group. And I think Joel said give them a very clear message, that the expectation and the standard and what they have to do to, the feedback around work rate, around accuracy of what they're doing, their skill set, all that kind of stuff. Someone like Finlay Bealham, who obviously is down the pecking order a little bit, but was very close a couple of years ago, was second choice. He's someone who is playing well this year for Connacht. He'll be saying, I want part of this. Ty Byrne, of course, he's in the scene quite early.
Yeah.
Incredible talent, ability to potentially be a starter and challenge for a starting berth. Jack Conan won't be happy kind of looking on, and he'll have that kind of drive and that fight. He's pretty resilient, tough, aggressive player, and very skillful as well.
Is Jordy Murphy ahead of him as a number 8? Or is...
Not as number 8, no not as a number 8. I think the advantage Jordy Murphy may have by getting onto the bench is you probably have to carry a 7. You have to carry someone who can play 7. I know Mahoney can go over there, but it gives a little bit of an advantage.
Yeah.
Sean Cronin, you know, that debate goes on and on and on. He'll want to start. So there's a lot of little stories here of guys who are kind of trying to put pressure on.
I think Niall Scannell has a good chance of playing the World
Rob
Cup.
Herring, Niall Scannell. They'll sense a little bit of an opportunity that with Rory best.
That's the only position really where you say that's definitely up for grabs, that spot.
The centre positions, I think Bundy Aki has accelerated himself into... It's hard to leave him out of the team, you know, and where do you play Henshaw then when he comes back? And you have to have Ringrose in there for the attacking point of view.
Yeah.
So there's like 2 into 3 there, and
Chris Farrell.
someone really... Chris Farrell is the 4th who I think he will go to the World Cup squad. But I think the other 3 are ahead of Chris. Chris Farrell was kind of making a name for himself.
Joe Schmidt loves Chris Farrell. I think he's exactly... It's like, wow, you're that big and you can do all the things that everybody else can do. I want a bit of that.
Yeah, but I think he's still behind Aki, Henderson and Ringrose at the moment. He's number 4.
Yeah.
But he definitely has the potential to be
I'd say if he gets fit.
number 1 or 2
if
he wants to, you know.
He hasn't had a chance to mess up yet.
Man of the match,
when he comes straight into the squad, it's obviously unbelievable. It was the Wales game, right?
It's going to take him a little bit of time now. He's had a significant knee injury, and I know from having that injury...
was it a cruciate or was it...
Yeah, it was a cruciate, yeah. Just... You come back at a certain level and you play, but then it's all the other conditioning and getting miles on the clock and stuff. It takes a bit of time. Herring, Kilcoyne. I know Kilcoyne, you know, I think he's played very well this year. Jack McGrath and Cian Healy, in fairness, are in that bracket of top international world-class players when they're going well. And but someone like him thinks he wants to get into a squad. He wants to play well. He played well against Italy in Soldier Field. So there's a number of forwards there who are kind of chomping at the bit. Now, it's a hard place to get into. I was on the Ireland A team for a couple of times over the years, and you think, how the hell am I going to get up into the first team if they lose a match or 2 and you play well on the A side? So there's always something to play for, and these guys will see it as a massive game for them and an opportunity to... They'll all want to be in the squad, but they've got to show they're good enough. Then when you look at the backs, Will Addison is someone who... You know, he started against Argentina, really good year this year with Ulster. Is there an opening there somewhere? Well, you just think if he's only an injury or 2 away from being a starter on the side. Andrew Conway as well, who Joe likes a lot. Very good under the high ball, very quick.
So who plays 15 this weekend?
It looks like Will Addison will play.
So that, you're a bit pissed off your Conway, aren't you? Because that's your slot.
Yeah, he's playing in the wing.
He's not getting a start in the wing.
Like Arnold and McCluskey in the centres, Sweetenham on the other wing.
But who's our second choice full-back, really? Like, is Jordan Larmour automatically our second choice full-back? Because I still think that he's actually a better winger. And it's early in his development yet.
Yeah. Henshaw could be an option of full-back where he started with Connacht. And you might end up at some stage accommodating him. But look, Carney keeps producing the goods.
This is purely in case of injury. But I'd like to see, and so if I'm Conway, I want to be playing myself into at least I'm the best backup.
Yeah.
But if Addison's getting the chance this weekend, then Schmidt is like, well, he's my guy.
Yeah.
So you'd be pissed off.
But Conway's also going to get the chance this weekend, but she's in a different position.
But the point is that, like...
He needs to be playing full back.
I think so.
But Addison and Larmour are both fighting for the 23 jersey. They will be 23 first or something.
And this is a challenging game for them in a sense that USA will sense if we get a result here. They've already beaten Scotland this year. They've a few good results. They're unbeaten. They're trying to build something themselves. And if they were to come to Dublin and rattle Ireland's cages a bit, they can, you know... It'd be very, very positive for them. But look, it's... you think there's not many opportunities for that World Cup squad. If you look at the way we coped at the weekend, missing Sean O'Brien, Dan Levy, Henshaw, Conor Murray, I think it was exceptional. And I think Murray... We've always worried about Murray and Sexton if they don't play in the big games. So
and now just one big one.
Carberry needs... he'll start at the weekend and...
It says Ross Byrne here in the possible Ireland 15 by Jerry Thornley. But Carbery's just on the bench, and I was actually just going to ask you that. But if Carbery would be a little bit annoyed that he's not going to get the chance to actually start.
If he doesn't start, he would be. I think. But it's understandable if he starts Ross Byrne as well. He's given him another opportunity to play at that. Get out at the Aviva as well and have a home test. It'll be his second cap. So Conor Murray, I think, missing the other day was, even though Marmion played superb, I think the kicking game out of Murray is so superior to anyone in World Rugby.
Yeah.
So it's not an insult to Kieran Marmion. He played really well.
We were making the point earlier, though, that there is room for any of the nines to put their hand up to be still the official backup, especially now that Marmion's been injured and is going to be out for 2.5, 3 months. So Marmion will be coming back just as the Six Nations starts. Does he go straight back into the team as Murray's backup, or is this the chance for Cooney or whoever to go, okay, or McGrath?
I think it is the chance. It is a chance because it's going to be difficult for Kieran Marmion to come back and get minutes under the belts. There's not a huge amount between the other three. There is a gap, and again, it's not an insult to them because I'm sure they'll all admit that Conor Murray his all-round game is phenomenal, and Cooney has that versatility. It might help him going to the World Cup because he can play 10 as well. He's a goal kicker as well, so.
The thing with McGrath, though, is that going into the Six Nations, they'll have played a heap of Champions Cup games, and Schmidt is McGrath and Sexton work pretty nicely there, and they've had. And
I think Luke McGrath has performed so well when he came off the bench against Argentina, and he looked good the other day as well. So he has that relationship with Sexton, and
it helps.
He just zips the ball out. He's the quickest probably of the backup with his delivery.
Okay, we do have a pair of tickets to give away to Leinster against the Ospreys this Friday night in the RDS. These are good seats, and for your chance to win, just tell us who has been Ireland's standout player during the November Test Series using the hashtag OTBAM. That's tricky, yeah.
Who would you pick?
I don't know. Bundy's been great.
Aki started in Chicago and against Argentina and New Zealand, so he's played 3. He probably won't be involved this weekend.
Peter O'Mahony's pretty good.
I think he's been brilliant. Yeah, O'Mahony was good.
James Ryan's been sensational.
There was no standouts in
the
Argentinian game. I think if you were picking one over the 3, there's only a couple have played the 3. Ringrose was another. James Ryan was, his work rate and his numbers against Argentina were really high as well, and they were massive again at the weekend. It's kind of hard, isn't it, to pick one because they didn't, play the three games.
Keane Healy played against Argentina. Rory Best, Furlong. Furlong's been sensational.
Yeah, a lot of them there. Yeah, I think James Ryan, Peter O'Mahony. I just think all the forwards, no huge standouts against Argentina. It was a stuttery performance.
Yeah. Because they were completely thinking about the All Blacks.
Yeah.
It turns out, in retrospect.
Yeah, and their body language
compared to
it was patchy, and but look, nothing focuses the mind like playing against New Zealand and the week after, and I just think a massive amount of credit has to go to the coaches as well for the plan they put in place, the way they managed the group. When you think of, Eddie O'Sullivan split squads before. I remember going to Argentina in 2006-07 season before the World Cup. It was 2007, and he left probably 15 guys at home.
The first choice lads.
Yeah. And we went to Argentina and we played in 2 tests there, and we won 1, lost 1. And then we went to the World Cup in 2007, and there was a lot of talk about a divide in the group. And
was there a divide because of that?
I can't consciously remember.
Screw you, you were in the first team.
Us versus them scenario. Yeah. But I thought it did kind of, at the time, send out a kind of a message that the team is already picked for that first game against Namibia and Georgia, and this is going to be the team, and maybe it kind of filtered through the squad that, well, no matter what we do, we're still not going to get in the team. Now, in fairness, they had a very successful Six Nations, and the idea of resting those guys was probably a good idea, because we didn't play in the Six Nations. They were the vast majority of guys who started all the Six Nations games, so they had a fair bit of mileage on the clock.
Could have come with you, done some training, not played the games.
I don't know.
Maybe the tour was a bad idea.
It's easy to pick it out when the World Cup didn't go well and say that was a factor. I didn't really feel it at the time. I probably felt when I was at the World Cup that there was a bit of resistance to change, particularly for the Argentina game, where at that stage it was completely backs to the wall stuff. We had to get a bonus point win. The same tried and trusted who hadn't performed in the previous 3 were put out again. I remember saying to Stephen Ferris and Neil Best, Jesus, I'd actually love if the 3 of us were just put into the back row and say, let's go mental and go mad and just have a real go and bring see if we could bring something different. And it was never going to happen because Simon, I think Dennis and Wally were the back row, in fairness. Brilliant players and incredible international quality players. But I just thought, even if you brought in a Ferris and a Best and just brought some kind of something different in that back row.
There was no threat to those.
Yeah, look, hindsight's a great thing. Eddie thought that, look, these guys can maybe deliver, and that was a very good Argentina team. But, you know, going back to the point I'm making, Joe leaving the group at home, training in Carton House, didn't have a negative effect for Italy. You know, he brought a group to Italy. He didn't go out until a Thursday morning himself.
Yeah.
So
at least, everybody knew that he was keeping an eye on them. I wouldn't say anybody slacked on training.
No, I think what he did was, with that group, is he prepared. They were working on tactics for
the All Blacks.
For the All Blacks.
Yeah, it's fair enough.
It wasn't being disrespectful to Argentina. I think there was a simpler game plan and structure for that game. And to leave the group at home like that, it paid off. It didn't pay off the last time that happened.
Our World Cup group, you brought the pools in here, so we've got Ireland, Scotland, Japan, Russia and Samoa. Like, Japan, Scotland and Samoa would traditionally have been seen by us heading into a World Cup group as banana skin, like a real chance for us to somehow screw this up. This team has a tendency not to screw these games up?
This team has, I think... If you go back to the World Cups, I think we were incredible. The ones I was involved, we were very unlucky in Australia in 2003. We should have beaten Australia. We would have topped the group. We would have played Scotland as opposed to a very good French team that time. Now, we did get walloped in the quarterfinals.
Yeah.
Maybe we weren't good enough. We had a lot of good players. Maybe we were, a bit unlucky with that. We should have beaten Australia.
There's a missed
Humphries had a drop goal and played really well in that game. They went on to the final. So there's fine margins between Ireland getting to a semi-final on a few occasions. 2007 was a disaster. We didn't get out of the pool. There's no getting away from that.
Georgia should have beaten us. I
think some of that split in the squad and maybe overtraining a little bit and being on our feet a lot. We just looked fatigued and dead in ourselves in 2007.
Was there a sense that you kind of get bored in the middle of a Rugby World Cup because there's a week between games?
I suppose the whole thing, there's been a lot said about the industrial estate in Bordeaux. It wasn't your ideal setting. I think the All Blacks weren't too far away from us outside of Bordeaux, but they were on the beach right on the coast, and it's definitely a nicer set. I remember in Terrigal in 2003 when we went to the World Cup, I think we had 18 days in Terrigal, about an hour and a half, 2 hours out of Sydney. And honestly, it was just beautiful.
Summer Bay, it's home and away, is it?
Yeah, it was close enough to it. But we had a lovely hotel right on the beach. We trained 10 minutes away, no traffic, no major distractions, small little town where we lovely restaurants, coffee shops, and we were on the beach. So we trained, come back in the bus, straight onto the beach, into the sea for the recovery. And it was just a great atmosphere and bond with that group. 2007, we were bored. You're in an industrial estate, you walk out, it's just a bit of a concrete jungle, there's no shops or anything, you have to get a taxi everywhere. Maybe it had an effect. The food was horrendous. They had to bring in a chef halfway through to try and get the food sorted. So there was a number of factors. And look, the team, I think, overtrained, a little bit of fatigue, maybe a bit of a split. Not consciously, but subconsciously, maybe it was, well, the boys are starting and we'll just go to the gym and train. I remember I did 6 weeks training there, five weeks at the World Cup, and I got in great shape. I was actually in really good shape and really hungry to start playing with Munster when I came home, and I had a really good run after that. 2011, that was one where I thought the win in Auckland against Australia Did the team get carried away? No, they didn't. I think they got caught cold by a very good Welsh side in the quarter-final.
And no plan B.
Yeah, maybe. I think what happened there was I remember the game really well, that Australia or Wales just took away their momentum. It was a real Sean Edwards masterclass. Just stop Ireland at source, get in O'Gara's face, get right off the line really quickly, and they just tackled everything from Ireland and played really well. And it was a massive disappointment, because I remember that was a great opportunity. I really thought they could win that one in 11 and get to a semi-final. And
that's when the O'Gara-Sexton battle is raging.
And they played, and Sexton came on against Australia at 12, and they played together in that 10-12 channel a few times there. Sean O'Brien, Jamie Heaslip, Ferris in the back row. What a back row. O'Connell, O'Callaghan. There was a lot of good players there. Driscoll, Darcy. Incredible quality there, So I think
that's the one that got
definitely got caught cold in that one. I think in 15 the injuries had a massive effect. So I think they've addressed a lot of those issues and the psychological stuff. Some people might say it'll be baggage going to the World Cup. If you win the group, you're probably playing South Africa in a quarter-final, which is going to be very difficult if you come second, or if South Africa were to beat New Zealand, you play them in the quarter-final, which is
not ideal.
It's not ideal, and so there's no guarantees.
You'd much prefer those in the semi-final.
There's no guarantees that we're going to get to a semi-final.
It's a trade-off for an easy pool.
Yeah, I think it'll be. Yeah.
Okay, so just a reminder, OTBAM is live with screwfix.ie, championing the trade with a choice of over 20,000 quality trade products. Let's talk Joe Schmidt, because the decision announcement on his future is to come in the next week apparently. Steve Hansen is making his decision before December. Hansen was ringing Joe Schmidt in the summer asking him for tickets for this game. I wonder, did they talk about anything else? What are your plans?
I spoke to Jeff Wilson last week, and I was asking him, and I was asking Justin Marshall, and I was saying, what's the talk back home in New Zealand? And both of them were saying there's no major talk about Joe Schmidt coming back. They know what he's achieving, and people know, he's doing really well in Ireland, with Ireland, and had done with Leinster. But I think the talk is that Steve Hansen is going up as a director of rugby, and then there will be a possibility of a position. But
how would Schmidt like that?
I don't know, really.
Then use the forward role where it's like, go and find me these players. That guy over there is qualified. He's not. Let's get him to a school. Do you know? Is it like?
But the thing that happened with Henry, which Jeff Wilson was kind of saying, was that when Graham Henry left, Henson kind of stepped up, and
Yeah.
So there's not a lot of change or to the structure or to the group.
Yeah.
And that. There's talk that a similar scenario is kind of happening, that maybe Ian Foster will step up and take the head coach role, and Hansen will go into that director or rugby role. I don't think they're going to panic and go, well, we have to get Joe. I think they'd be foolish not to take him if he was available. But I don't think there's any kind of ulterior motive or any kind of planning going on here in the background saying, well, Joe, you now have the job. I think there'd be...
So if he's going back, he's not going back to take the senior job, he's just going back and then seeing what happens.
Well, he might not go back for a while. He might just take a break, and I think if he's leaving the job, he's going back to New Zealand with the family, and then listen, he can take any job he wants, really. I think any of the Super Rugby franchises back there, he could go and live in Australia, take a job there with one of those. Everyone would want Joe if he went back down to the Southern Hemisphere. I think if he goes from the Irish job, I think his next job, you think, is the New Zealand head coach. I fear it's going to happen. I don't think there's a major panic, even though he'd be incredible loss. But I think if he left, what he would leave behind is a level of detail and coaching that will stay with the group of coaches that he's worked with, and they will have benefited and learned hugely from him over the years.
And the players, it looks like Johnny Sexton, when he finishes playing rugby, wants to be a coach. There aren't a whole heap of jobs, but you can see him being an amazing coach. Like, he's got that analytical brain from having been exposed to Joe Schmidt for the best part of his career. So,
that's not always easy though, Ger. I think the key for the coach is obviously having that tactical brain and that knowledge and that vision of being able to view and see things that maybe others can't see, and to see maybe 2 or 3 phases ahead. But dealing with people as well. You got to manage a group. There's fair pressure there. It's well renowned that Joe Schmidt doesn't sleep a lot. He's up in the middle of the night doing analysis, videos. I think if you challenge him on something, you better know your detail, because you can be sure he's watched the same video 10 times over.
Yeah.
And you better know your stats and facts, and he's renowned for that. And he's one of the... But any of the head coaches will tell you, and Paulie was we were on the road show last week at the Olympia. It's a case of, you know, you're up at 5, 6 in the morning, you're in 2 or 3 hours before the players, even with the provincial jobs. The international is different.
They love that.
But it's a fair bit of sacrifice with family. Yeah, they do. I suppose they get in.
It's a vocation.
And probably it's that time in the early morning where before any of the players or distractions come in, you're getting 2 or 3 hours of putting a plan in the rest of the day and finding that detail or finding something in one of the tapes, the videos that you can show the players, structuring the day. And, you know, he was talking about that, you know, that's the stuff they're doing. He's having to do now instead. Whereas a player, you come in, you know, you have all that, and you can go back and you can do your diet and your recovery and all that kind of stuff. They've got to do all the planning before the meeting, before the session, and then do the post stuff as well, getting ready for the next day, and then travel, plan, all that kind of stuff. So you need to have a good mindset and a good amount of composure for all that stuff that goes with it.
The World Rugby Player of the Year is going to be announced on Sunday. It's basically Barrett versus Sexton. Sexton has to win after.
I think he has to win it.
Or does the 4 tries that Barrett gets swing it? Is like
look, if you're going on the recent game and the results, I think, and maybe, you know, Barrett having won it a couple of times already, I think Sexton should get it. Going right back to Paris, that drop goal.
Yeah, come on.
4 tries and
early in the season, late in the season, and everything in between. No games lost.
Yeah, I think he's just had an incredible season with Leinster as well, and winning. He's won a lot of stuff. Series, Grand Slam series win in Australia, Heineken Cup, Pro 14.
Like, not bad.
Beating New Zealand as well. So,
well, maybe, do you know what? Maybe we want Barrett to get it so that everybody in Irish Rugby feels like
we have a cause.
Exactly.
I think it'd be really nice for him to get it, and I think it'd cap off an incredible year for him. And I think he'll be the first to admit that it's the players, the group he's been with as well have helped him both in Leinster and Ireland. So we have a lot of good players who are at that.
Keith Earls doesn't make the catch for the crossfield kick, then the drop goal never happens.
He had to execute it at the end. I always think of him stretching his calf in the middle of one of the phases. He was getting cramp and he was down stretching his calf while the forwards were doing a bit of over and back, and then got back involved again. So it was brilliant.
Quick question on that, right? England don't take the opportunity against the All Blacks to do it. They haven't got the brain power at the end of the game to sling the ball back. Is that on Farrell for not telling them to do it? Is that on the forwards? Like, what?
It's hard to know. I think I just remember playing with O'Gara, and you would have got that message. It would have been
who
he would probably tell the scrum half, and then he'd come into huddle and scream and shout and say, just play as many phases as you can. I'm going to put it over the bar, drop goal, you know. So I think ultimately it's hard for coaches to be shouting messages in the heat of battle. Look at Barrett against South Africa. If he takes a drop goal there and said, look,
it turns out he can kick them now.
We always and all teams would have kind of practiced maybe a scenario where you have to go for one, where you have the over and back, the zigzag type scenario. Do you remember the 41 phases or something, Northampton, Munster, where Munster were playing for a drop goal? If you're a Northampton defender there, you know what they're at.
Yeah.
You're they nearly turned it over a few times, and then he bangs it over, you win the game. He didn't do it against South Africa, and I think that mentality for New Zealand was they believed they were going to score a try and win the game. I think England, probably the hammer blow of not being given the try probably affected him, and you know, that kind of panic seeped through him a little bit. But that's where maybe Farrell, he's still a good bit younger than Sexton, incredibly resilient, but I think he should have probably taken control there and tried to set up a starter play for a drop goal to win them the game.
Fair enough. Alan, good stuff. Thanks very much for joining us.
Thanks, Joe.
If you want to enter that competition, now's your last chance to do it. Just comment on the show wherever you're watching it. Use the hashtag OTBAM and tell us who is your standout player during the November internationals. Niall Scannell was speaking to the press earlier this week. Here he is talking about Sexton's influence around the Irish dressing room.
Yeah, well, like obviously he's a massive standard setter in training, and he's one of our big leaders, and you know, particularly from an attack point of view, he's hugely competitive, so he brings those standards. Obviously I haven't been with him the last couple of weeks, but just looking back to my experience in Australia, it's probably more little things he taps you on the shoulder about post games, you know, that he'll grab a clip and he'll show you, and you know, it's brilliant for someone like me just to get learnings like that, and especially when I hadn't played much with Johnny before. So yeah, he's certainly just like, and I assume if he's doing that with me, he's doing it with all the players, so he certainly does kind of give everyone those tips, and that's brilliant. That's the kind of character he is, really.
And he has come to you specifically with a couple of...
Yeah, like things in Australia, like running lines and things like that, you know, I was obviously kind of catapulted in a bit late when Rory got injured, and like he just helped me like with little things. It's not like he's on your case or anything, but when you can pull up a clip and say, in this scenario, if you did A, B or C, then, you know, it just gives you a better overall understanding. And I feel like I'm at a level now with the Irish game plan where, you know, I have that learning, like I have that knowledge now, but I probably didn't have it to the same extent at the start of the Australia tour. And you know, Johnny was a huge help to me in that respect, so I assume he's pretty much like that with everyone.
That's really interesting. Sexton pulling up clips and saying, let's talk about this for his teammates. So that coaching is already starting. Right, Darren is here. Darren, how are you?
Good morning, Ger. Very well.
The Ireland job?
One story dominating the papers today, dominating the sporting discourse, the focus on the departure of Martin O'Neill and the man to replace him, with many of the day's papers asking, is it time to go Mac to the future?
Hey.
You've got to come back with me. Where? Back to the future.
Would you like to manage the Irish team
if
in the
their
future?
Contracts come to an end and the job is available and I'm out of work, I would love it again. Anybody comes knocking at my door and they'll be getting a custard pie, sorry. MM stands for Mick McCarthy, not Merlin Magician. So let's try and do a bit of work, and let me get on the training ground, then we'll crack on and see what we can do. The pendulum has swung once more in my favour.
The nostalgia, Ger, are you full of it?
No.
No?
No.
You're not buying into nostalgia appointments?
No, I don't think so.
I think if you'd gone with the players want this guy, we'd never have an Arsene Wenger. You'd only ever have Alan Pardew, Sam Allardyce and the likes in jobs. You only went for the familiar guys.
Yeah.
People known to people. The dream team of Mick McCarthy, Robbie Keane, has emerged as the favourites to replace Martin O'Neill and Roy Keane. The FAI have yet to reveal when they will appoint a successor, but are said to have started discussions with potential candidates over the coming days. McCarthy has expressed an interest in returning to the role he held between 96 and 02. Republic of Ireland defender Matt Doherty has given some insight into the tactical approach, or rather what was a lack of a tactical approach. The Wolves defender earned his first 4 caps back in March of this year. He spoke to RTE Radio last night and gave an insight into how this setup was run. Doherty says his teammates were often unclear as to their role and their shape.
You could class it as old school. There's obviously we have Portuguese people in charge, so there's a lot of coaching, stuff like that, where when you were Ireland didn't really have that much coaching. It was more of we'll play a little 5-a-side game or 11-a-side game, and then that would be it. So you lead all the way up to the game, maybe the day before a game, and you do a few set pieces here and there, and then go into the game, and you're kind of thinking to yourself, well, what shape are we going to play? Like you'd have a few players thinking, I think we're going to play this shape, or you might have somebody else thinking, I think it's going to be this one. And you can't really have that, especially in international football. People not really sure on what the role is the next day.
I mean, do the players look? That's the way they chose to run things, and clearly the players didn't ask, can we do things differently? They shouldn't have to, but it doesn't seem like there was much discourse going on.
I think it's very, very difficult in that situation for players to approach the management and say,
can we do a bit of tactical work? Let's do a bit of shape here. What do you think, boss? Should we do a bit of...
can do that.
Why not?
You're undermining the management straight away, and I don't think Keane and O'Neill are the kind of characters that would respond well to being questioned. The media's job is to question them, and they met that almost every time they met the media with complete hostility. So if the players decide to start questioning the tactics, like there was a scene just before the last game where O'Neill was sitting alongside Coleman, And I think it was Owen Cowser from The Sun asked, what have you done between Northern Ireland, that 0-0 draw, and this game against Denmark to change things? And O'Neill stopped them from answering. Like literally said, no, I'll answer that. I'm the manager. They're questions for me. If you want to know what I'm doing in training, ask me. It's not Seamus's job to answer. So if you think that the players are then in a position to question the manager when the media can't even question the manager, there's no hope. It would have been, they would have known in that camp that he's not a guy you question his motives.
It is bad though that they're not working on shape. I mean, it's not breaking news or anything. I think everybody kind of had that sense.
So what do they do? Like the idea that professional footballers in an international setup just have an 11-a-side kickabout and then set pieces the day before the match just so the players remember them. I mean, it's treating them like kids if they forget set pieces if they do them any earlier in the week. It's bonkers.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's true.
Truly bonkers. Man City boss Pep Guardiola has been warned by the English FA about speaking about referees. Gerard Guardiola broke FA rules by discussing the suitability of Anthony Taylor for the Manchester Derby. Taylor's appointment criticised by some City fans due to the fact he was born about 6 miles from Old Trafford. Although Guardiola backed Taylor and dismissed accusations of potential bias, managers are not even allowed to talk about referee appointments. United boss Jose Mourinho fined 50 grand for a similar charge 2 years ago. Well, the FIFA president Gianni Infantino predicts the 2022 World Cup will be the best ever. Qatar's awarding of the tournament was controversial due to the country's terrible human rights record and the hot weather. The climate led to a switch from the typical June-July dates to November and December. There remains a lack of clarity over the number of teams that will be involved and when the matches / where the matches will be played. Confirmation yet to come on the official makeup of the tournament. Infantino has told FIFA.com, I think that all the ingredients are there to make the World Cup in 2022 an unforgettable event. He continued, it will be a very compact World Cup, all of the stadiums within a 1 hour maximum distance from each other. It will be a World Cup hosted by a country which has all the infrastructure and the possibilities ready to welcome the world. The climate will be great as well in November, December. It's between 15 to 25 degrees Celsius in Doha, and this is ideal conditions for such a sporting event.
I mean, look, here's the thing. That's all true, right? The stadiums will be amazing. The temperature will be absolutely perfect that time of year. It will be really compact. It's exactly what a tournament should feel like. There will be a mad tournament feel. They should just never have got it in the first place. They shouldn't have been allowed to bid and then change it because they lied. And also, that whole process stinks.
But the idea that, you know, it's great that it's compact. That's not generally what they're looking for in the process. The whole point is that it's spread around the country and it leaves an indelible mark on more than just the centre or the capital of any given country.
Yeah, like, look, it was a bad choice in the first place. It's going to be a good tournament. That's how these things work. Like,
yeah.
It is not going to be good for humanity. It's like the Olympic Games. The 100 metres is always amazing, generally, but the Olympics ruins every city that it goes to.
The issue as well is how did they arrive at this decision and what were the mechanics of choosing this and Qatar's bid, which we probably will never know, not at least for the next decade when things become a little bit clearer or football leagues get involved. But anyway, the Chelsea legend Didier Drogba has announced his retirement from playing football. The 40-year-old striker won multiple trophies in 2 spells at Stamford Bridge, including 4 Premier League titles and the Champions League in 2012. Drogba was capped more than 100 times for the Ivory Coast. He was most recently playing for Phoenix Rising in the USA. In rugby, the Leinster out-half Ross Byrne and Ulster scrum half John Cooney could be handed their first Ireland starts later. We're expecting to see white smoke from Carton House at around lunchtime. Joe Schmidt tipped to select an entirely changed team when he revealed his starting 15 for the final November test against the USA. Munster centre Sammy Arnold looks set to earn his first cap. The papers today suggesting Dave Kilcoyne, Niall Scannell, Andrew Porter, Quinn Rue, Rhys Ruddock, Jordy Murphy and Jack Conan will all likely to come into the starting team. Well, Johnny Sexton says beating the All Blacks at home will be a career highlight for him. The test match described as a glorified friendly by some social media users and one prominent newspaper columnist here earlier this week. The out-half spoke about what the occasion meant to him after being named the Rugby Writers of Ireland Player of the Year.
Everything that's happened has sort of been more special because of what's gone on before and you know, so when we win the Grand Slam to then go on and achieve with Leinster was special because, you know, maybe some other teams might have just said, you know, oh look, we're happy with that and rested on their laurels, but we kicked on and so obviously very proud of that. Then to go then to Australia and sort of back that up and I think the highlight for me anyway was last Saturday. It was like almost a final in some ways because it was, you know, our final game for Ireland for a lot of us for the season and against the best team and you know, the atmosphere was something I've never experienced before. I'm not sure I ever will again. It was just incredible from the start of the day to the end of it, and we finished it off in style back in the Shelbourne. So it was a good night all round.
It's true that like that atmosphere will never be repeated because we'll never beat them for the very first time on home soil. Like next time they come will be 2 years' time, 3 years' time probably, and it'll just be a thing. Like it won't be okay. They'll still be the best team in the world probably at that time, but it is a moment in their history that they'll never forget.
It's a huge moment, and it's kind of refreshing to hear the players explain what it means to them. I think Chicago, it was easy to detach yourself from it because it was in a different country. It was largely hidden from the general public.
Because you weren't there.
I wasn't there.
You were there. It was amazing.
You were there.
It was unbelievable.
Amazing. But for the most people didn't even see it. It wasn't on RTE. It wasn't the spectacle that it should have been. Well, this felt like a big event. This almost felt bigger than the first one.
And
it was huge. It really was. And to be honest, a lot of the stuff that's come out after it has kind of clouded the fact of rugby is in a really, really healthy place. The idea that, this is just a kind of a milestone in itself, and that outside of it the club game is in trouble and everything. I was at a Leinster game in April, and it was Leinster against Zebra, and they managed to attract 10,000 people. So the idea that rugby is populated by event junkies or people who are just there for the biggest dates in the calendar, I'm not so sure there's the proof there that washes it. I think you have to give Leinster and Ulster and Connacht and Munster credit for what they've done. They've built a product that is attractive to people. It's marketed really well.
Yeah, but also I think that people are becoming accustomed to having a professional league that they go to 8 to 10 games a year. Like that's what fans and supporters do. There's the beginnings of supporter culture coming through in the 4 provinces, and like that's undeniable.
Yeah,
it's a new sport. Professional rugby is a brand new sport. Like these teams didn't really exist in their current guise. They certainly didn't play half as many games as they are doing when it was an amateur sport, and that has been a transcendent moment that Ireland has managed to capitalise on and has put the structures in place. And so it is really only getting started. The quality of players coming through, the investment, the amount of coaching nous that's there, and that is like going around the world. From Ireland, it used to always be that the best people were foreign coaches coming in. Clearly there's still an amazing array of foreign coaches working in Ireland, but there are a bunch of Irish people now suddenly going out around the world and going, our rugby culture is worth talking about and it's worth being proud of. And
it's the fastest bandwagon we have. At the same time, I do still think that, I think earlier on in the week, Rory said that it's almost going to eclipse the soccer if it continues at the current rate. I don't think we'll ever get to that position because soccer and the national football team captures the imagination in a way that's unrivaled. Like you can't tell a Rugby World Cup is on in this country, but if Ireland are at a major tournament, you can drive around Dublin or any other county and see flags around the town. You would get a sense that the country is involved in something big. I don't think rugby has got there just yet, and I'm not sure if it ever will.
I mean, who knows, right? Who knows in 20 years' time if they get this decision wrong and we don't qualify for the Euros and the decision after that is wrong and suddenly our best players are playing in League 2 and the league in Ireland isn't invested in and the stadiums go to rack and ruin. Like, not beyond the bounds of possibility that happens, right? It'd be a tragedy for the sport, but I wouldn't be complacent about being number one.
Do you think rugby can catch up?
I don't think so, but I don't think they need to either. Like what level of growth do they need to continue having before you go, well, this is an unbelievably important sport in the country?
Yeah.
Like it kind of is there already.
The accessibility of soccer will always protect it from everything because soccer is the easiest sport to play. You can
give a ball in the yard of grass.
Yeah, and I just feel that in as good as the rugby team has done for the Irish psyche and as good of a positive impact it's had, I still think that when things are going well in the soccer, there is no better feeling, there's no better mood around the nation.
It's
as
true.
Great as the All Blacks was. And
I know, it's true.
The impact that had on people's psyche.
But say the soccer team continues to be crap. Say we get relegated from Division C, is that what it's called? League C, sorry.
Group 1.
Into D, right? Say suddenly it's like, say we have a dark age the way the North had in the aftermath of the 1990 World Cup up until Michael O'Neill coming. Maybe Laurie Sanchez had probably got some reasonable results with them. But say we've 25 years of a dark age and Ireland were to win a World Cup in rugby. Do kids kids will always have the ambition of playing for Man United, but that doesn't necessarily mean, you know.
They're so changeable. 1 minute they want to be Johnny Sexton, the next minute they want to be Robbie Brady. Like it changes so much because at that age you will be inspired by what everyone is talking about.
If you've got a pathway to seeing some level of success, I think that's so everybody wants to be Messi when they're in the back garden, right? Absolutely. But how easy is it for a kid who's good to get scouted, to get the good quality coaching, to play in a meaningful league at 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14? Like whereas if you're only good at rugby, you get spotted by your local club first and then funneled into the school system and away you go. You've got access straight away. It's a much smaller product. And I'm not saying they're ever going to be the same, but I just wouldn't be complacent that football will be protected, because now the decisions need to be made to fix football.
Yeah, and I think probably the most concerning result, and it was something that was mentioned in Luke Edwards' piece in The Telegraph, was that 31,000 people turned up to see Northern Ireland. And it wasn't the fact that it was a low number, it was the fact that those who turned up knew what they were getting. So I think the change in management is important because it will signify that it may be a change in approach. The problem with the recent results have been they were entirely predictable. So while it is hard to get a sucker punch and 5-1 was hard to live with, the worst part was you knew that it was going to get worse before it gets better. I think there will be an upturn, and again, nothing captures the imagination like that soccer team. It is great though that we actually have one positive story, and maybe even at some stage 2 positive stories. Do you remember how great 2016 must have been, where we had a decent rugby team and a great soccer team?
Yeah.
Pine for those days. Speaking of a decent team, the Irish golf team of Shane Lowry and Paul Dunn hold a share of 7th place after the opening round of the World Cup of Golf in Melbourne. That's 2 shots behind the joint leaders, England, South Korea and Australia. And finally, Ger, just a word on the boxing, and Kelly Harrington can secure a silver medal at the World Women's Elite Championships in New Delhi today. The Dubliner already secured a bronze. She will return to the ring for a lightweight semi-final against Karina Igramimova later today.
Yeah, you can watch those online?
Yeah, they can be difficult to find out which ring they're in because it's a feed of the 4 or 5 different rings. We will try and find it, and we'll tweet it from @OffTheBall.
Podrick Wickham says, Jim McGuinness with Davy Fitz as number 2. Serious management ticket there, make it happen @FA Ireland, @OffTheBall, @Paul Pogba. So all the decision makers copied in on the tweet. Mind yourself. Carl Clear says, should the conversation not be more around root and branch reform in the FAI and their structures, as without them there is little any manager can do with the national team? Hashtag Martin O'Neill, hashtag Roy Keane, hashtag John Delaney. Well, I think that's why there's going to be a really rapid appointment made, so that those conversations don't happen, so that isn't the topic, because already you're starting to see, so Liam Brady has a piece today in the Examiner and he's like, look, okay, change the manager, see what happens, but really ultimately John Delaney needs to take a long hard look in the mirror. Everybody else is talking about the board of the FAI, so I suspect you will see very quickly a decision being made, and I hope that isn't the camouflage not to have that root and branch conversation, because the point you're making about everybody being interested, if Joe Schmidt leaves, whoever's going to replace him is not making the front page of the tabloids the next day. It matters way more, and
it's the biggest job in Irish sport.
Yeah, and there's a big opportunity. Maybe the CEO's job is the biggest job.
But I think Delaney can sometimes be an easy punching bag. He does make mistakes, but why? I understand the stagnation and being in the job for a very, very prolonged period of time. People will question, what's the motivation? What has he achieved in that time? But the O'Neill Keane was a good appointment, right up until the last 12 months.
Yeah.
So I don't understand what he has to explain himself for on this particular appointment.
It's about the quality of the league, and it's about the ability that the league doesn't have currently to generate revenue or interest or a player pathway that is clearly signposted to the international team. Because you can't say I can be the best player in the League of Ireland and I'm going to get into the international team. Like there's no connection there at all. It's just like, well, you're not. You're going to have to go to England, and then maybe if you have a good season in England, we'll put you in the international team.
But I don't know if that's the purview of the CEO to try and entice people to League of Ireland grounds. I think it's a very, very difficult sell, and a lot of it will come down to infrastructure, and people don't want to spend their Friday nights in grounds that are falling down. Now, I know that's not every ground, but there are a lot of dilapidated grounds around the country. There are maybe 3 or 4 that you would be happy to spend some time in, or enjoyable match night experience. But I'm just not sure if you can lay that all on the blame of Delaney. Do the FAI need to do more? Absolutely. 100%.
Well, then appoint somebody whose job that is, so you can actually say
We
this
have
is
someone,
that
that's
person.
Frank Gavin.
But it's not Frank Gavin's job either to lobby the government to get funding for those grounds and those stadiums. Really, and he doesn't have. Whereas Delaney obviously can walk into the Minister for Sport and say, "What are you going to do for football? What are you going to do for us?" Like there is a power which comes from being in charge of the organisation that's taken a lot of public money. You know, you're saying, well, this is what we do for you. We increase the health of the nation, bring these moments of joy, and in return, we want you to do stuff for us. Niall Quinn was pretty interesting in this last night, and I just think Niall Quinn should be involved in football in Ireland, given his experience.
Yeah, I think, I suppose a lot of the critics of the FAI have said that some people who have real valuable contributions to make to Irish football have either been removed from their posts or their contracts were allowed to run down and not replaced with people of similar calibre. I know Brian Kerr made that point on the show yesterday with Joe. It's a very, very valid one. You would believe that it wouldn't be so much of a small focus group trying to make changes, a group that has been very much unchanged in the best part of the last decade and longer. You would hope that maybe they could expand that brain trust and bring in some of these people who do have a voice and should have a role in shaping the future of Irish football. Do we need a complete root and branch reform? I wouldn't be so sure, because it is better the devil you know, and while it hasn't been perfect, it hasn't been too grim. They have presided over things that are quite positive. Like the Aviva Stadium is quite positive. We've seen so many failed stadium ambition plans over the year, particularly associated with Irish football. I would say while there are issues and questions to answer, they're probably being good that we'll never get enough credit for.
A couple more comments from our viewers this morning. No harm to McCarthy, but Stephen Kenny should be the first in line for the vacancy, says Crahor O'Leachan. Stephen says Kenny's our best bet. He'll give League of Ireland and Scottish-based players a chance. O'Neill was snobbish to them leagues, and Kenny will try and play a better brand of football. Get rid of Delaney also, says Stephen. John Cotter says has to be someone who wants Ireland to win. Don't need another trap type. Shouldn't be going back to previous managers. Stephen Kenny, Roy Keane, Chris Hughton. Literally nobody has mentioned Roy Keane up to this point. John Cotter is the first person who's texted us in. I don't think Roy's going to get the gig.
He's the real loser, because a year ago, had O'Neill gone to take that Stoke job, Keane would have been the heir apparent. He would have got that job. Who knows what would have happened, but he would have had a chance at the biggest job in Irish football, probably the most iconic Irish player we've ever produced in the most high-profile football job in the country. It certainly would have been interesting, but now he's never getting that job. He's completely removed himself from it. There's not a hope in hell he's ever getting in that position again to get that gig.
RVN on YouTube says, love this guy who comes on and does the sports news. That's you.
I'm sure there's another part at the end, is there?
No,
less complimentary part.
Ruud van Nistelrooy. Sam Mack says, my player of the November series without any doubt has been Marmion. He had more resting on his shoulders than anyone else. Tommy just deleted that, so I lost my pace. Than anyone else, and went beyond proving we're okay if Murray drops out. And now he's injured. Like, playing through injury to play in that All Blacks game is pretty heroic stuff. And he's out for 4 months.
Yeah, he was class. He's one of these players that I definitely probably underestimated, and maybe unfairly, or maybe he played beyond his capabilities. He seemed to just be operating at a level where we hadn't seen it before. He really turned it up for the big game.
We had a number of tickets to give away this morning on OTBAM for Leinster against the Ospreys tomorrow night in the RDS. We asked you to tell us who's been Ireland's standout player during the November Test series, just using the hashtag OTBAM. Matt Kiernan said James Ryan, Anthony McDonald said Peter O'Mahony, Stephen Elliott said James Ryan, and Sam Mack said Kieran Marmion. So you're our competition winners, and we'll be in touch with you by DM or however you got in touch with us. Darren, good stuff. Thanks very much.
Cheers, Ger.
We'll be back tomorrow morning at 7:45. The show is on the radio this evening, obviously at 7. There's plenty to come in between. Keith Andrews will be on this afternoon talking about what he thinks should happen. That is live from 12:30 on all of our social channels, so stay tuned for that. Good luck.
OTB AM.
Thanks to Screwfix.ie, championing the trade with a dedicated call centre.